Shalom Aleichem, a good night of Shabbos, Pashas Noach, Tavshin Pei Beis. We're in the midst of the work of Yaakov Holach Ledarkoi. Yaakov hits the road, Jack hits the road. What road are we talking about? The road of Avodas Hashem, of serving Hashem in a time when, as the Rebbe says, the world shuckelt sich und treiselt sich, the world is shaking and trembling. But we, Yidden, know that Torah gives us all the answers. So Rabbi Say Chevra, we look into Pashas Noach and we talk about a teva, we talk about a flood, and we know that the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, says that the flood was the tahara for the world. The Eibishter God brought water of such abundance to purify the world, like a mikveh purifies a contaminated person. A spiritually unfit person needs a mikveh for various reasons, halachic reasons, ethical reasons, etc. Hashem, God, brought the waters of the flood to purify the world from its corruption and all the other issues and sins and transgressions that were there, but also as a preparation for a higher revelation. I encourage you to learn the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, Mayim Rabim, the famous Maimer, where the Alter Rebbe speaks about Tirdus HaParnosa, the anxiety caused by Parnosa, and at the same time, that cannot and should not detract a person from serving Hashem b'simcha, with joy and happiness and succeeding, but rather it's a springboard for a greater good. Anyway, I refer you to that mimer. It's already available online in Hebrew and English and other languages. But tomorrow is also the yahrzeit of the Heiliger Ruzhiner, or as the Hasidim would say, the Heiliger Ruzhiner, Rebbe Yisrael Friedman of Ruzhiner, a great-grandson of the Maggid of Mezrich, whose grandfather was Rabbi Avram Mamalech, the son of the Mezricher Maggid, who also was a Chavrusa with the Alter Rebbe, or actually not a Chavrusa, he taught the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe made a deal with the Maggid to teach the Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner, Rebbe Avram HaMalach, to teach him Nigle, and Rebbe Avram HaMalach taught the Alter Rebbe Kabbalah. Anyway, tomorrow is Gimel Cheshvan, is the yahrzeit of the Heiliger Ruzhiner. I wrote a book called Chabad and Boyan, Kloisenburg, Skver, and Stolin. I studied these four Hasidic groups and their relationship to Chabad, Lubavitch, and the Rebbe, the Rabbeim and the Rebbe in particular. On page 25, I have a section called Tzemach Tzedek and Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner. And for a moment, I want to focus on this idea. Why was it called the Heiliger Ruzhiner? You know, Lubavitcher Rebbes and Lubavitcher Chassidim are not quick to give accolades. Whether we like it, we understand it, we don't. I've told you the story when the Rebbe once called a Chassid Harav, a Rebbe, and all kinds of titles, and the Chassid went into the Rebbe and he said, Rebbe, I don't feel any of these accolades and titles, and I'm just a regular person. And the Rebbe said, feeling is nit keimuz. Feeling is not absolutely an absolute requirement. You do feel, you don't feel. If I'm calling you a Rav, Reb, Avasik, V'Chassid, that's the emeskite. That's the truth. But nevertheless, what did Tzemach Tzedek mean? And the Rabbeim following the Tzemach Tzedek, what did they mean when they called the Ruzhiner the Heiliger Ruzhiner? You ask a person on the street, you ask any Chassid, they'll tell you, well, he was such a great tzaddik. It's called the Heiliger Ruzhiner. So why didn't the Rabbeim call it Noam Elimelech, the Heiliger Noam Elimelech, or another great tzaddik, the Heiliger this, the Heiliger that? We don't find that in Lubavitch and Chabad terminology, using the word Heiliger, holy one, for a certain great rabbi, scholar, Rosh Hashiva, or Rebbe even. So, if I may suggest the following, the Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner, the father figure of the Ruzhiner movement, which today consists of Boyan and Heiliger and the Husaten and many others, because they go back and they had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's a large family, known as the Friedman family. They all come from Rebbe Yisrael. Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner's greatness was his Heiligkeit. Not Heiligkeit as a noun, but as a verb. Meaning to say, why was he Rebbe Yisrael, the Holy One, as a noun? Because of who he was, Rebbe Yisrael, the Holy One, as a verb. What do I mean? The manner of his conduct and his approach to Hashem was in a very holy way, meaning removed. Kaddish, we have a verse in the Torah and support, which means muvdal, separate. His approach to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism, to Torah, to mitzvahs, to Hasidus, was very enigmatic. Not just in miracles, but the average type of conversation was very enigmatic. For example, this is quoted in our Sefer HaMinhagim regarding Tisha B'Av. In our Sefer HaMinhagim of Chabad, it says that the Tisha B'Av, the Ruzhiner, would not tolerate sadness, but rather would have the kids throw little berelach, little things that have these thorns on them from trees. And there was a fiasco in the shul, and it brought people to speak about and stop and do and laugh. And Tisha B'Av, you have to cry. And it's Churban Beis HaMikdash. On that day, you're throwing berelach. And this is brought in Sefer HaMinhagim Chabad. This type of activity is very Kaddish, it's very Heilig, it's very enigmatic, it doesn't make sense. One example. Another example. The Tzemach Tzedek repeated that he came to the Ruzhiner and he said a word. There's a story where he asked him, how do you cover your roof? So he said, I cover my roof with metal, so that it lasts longer. So he said to him, you could cover it up with with mud and dirt, and it would be the same. And the Tzemach Tzedek explained that he wasn't talking about literally how you cover your roof. He meant to say, how do you lead your Hasidus? So he said, with anhaga of leadership of metal, because the Ruzhiner Hasidim and the Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner and his followers, even the Boyaner Rebbe today, I saw him in Miran several years ago, standing on the bima, and he was very elegant and didn't shake much and didn't move much and didn't make with his hands and didn't make with his eyes. None of these, type of his spilus, we call it, emotional outbursts. He didn't show any of them at all. That's a malchus, a royal regal type of approach, which they attribute to his great-grandfather Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner. So Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner said, the Tzemach Tzedek says, Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner, that's the anhaga that you're leading, but you can also accomplish the same, and maybe even more, I'm paraphrasing, through making a roof with dirt, meaning dirt in the sense of bittul, humility, dirt, right? Dust, dirt. The point is that this type of conversation is very unusual. Why don't you say, how are you leading your people? In this way, maybe try this way, And again, I'm not saying this that the Ruzhiner way should be changed because of the Lubavitcher way. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm discussing is and bringing home is that this whole approach of the Ruzhiner was in an enigmatic way. The Heiliger Ruzhiner, in other words, the way the Ruzhiner teaches and leads his Hasidim is not in the way of Chabad, And within Chagas, within the Polish European type of Hasidus, it's in a Heiliger way, it's in a very enigmatic way, which makes no sense outwardly, but really it's the epitome of holiness. And that is what the Samach Tzedek and the Lubavitcher Rebbeim appreciated about the Heiliger Ruzhiner. And there are many other stories. I encourage you to read the chapter in this book, because you'll have a lot of information pointing out various points, not only this point. What does it have to do with today's Boyaner Rebbe soll sein gesund? Well, in 1980 or so, he was on the fence whether he wanted to become Rebbe or not. His older brother didn't want to be. There's a lot of history. It's all in the book. Very important history, things that people do not know, and we discovered and we shared and alluded to, and it's very, very important to understand the specialty of this Rebbe, the current day Boyaner Rebbe in Yerushalayim. And who was it, amongst others, that really gave him a strong push? The Rebbe. And the Rebbe told us, I believe, to Rebbe Yalis when he once visited the Rebbe, that following Chalamoid. And then there was a sudden yechidus when he came to America to marry. I believe there was a sudden yechidus. The Rebbe called him in, probably through Zalman Garadi, who was the son-in-law of the Kapishn Rebbe, was related to the Boyaner Rebbe. So I assume that he set up that yechidus, or made it happen. And they say that the Rebbe really encouraged him to take the leadership. Lepoili took the leadership. But yes, a few days ago I saw a clip from 1992, I think, mamish, the last year before the Rebbe had his stroke, where the Rebbe tells a Bacha passes by the Rebbe at dollars, and the Rebbe he says, it's my birthday today. It was the 28th of Mar Cheshvan, or I forget what month. It was the birthday of his birthday, and he says that, the Rebbe says, it's the day of the Ruzhiner, because it was the birthday of the Ruzhiner too. The Rebbe smiles to the Bacha and he says, "Lernen sich von seinen Drochim." You should learn from his ways, something like that. You can hear it. It's online. It's been passed around. And then the Bacha walks away, and then the Rebbe calls him back, and the Rebbe says, "Aber bleiben a Lubavitcher." It's not the exact verbatim words, but it's the idea. I don't recall the exact words. Learn from the Ruzhner's way, but you're a Lubavitcher, remain a Lubavitcher. Now, this will take a long, long time to talk and discuss, but basically, everyone needs to know who and what they're committed to, as far as who's their tzaddik and what derech they choose. Not to exclude another derech, another tzaddik, but if you've chosen Lubavitch as your derech, you have to learn from the Ruzhiner, the Heiliger Ruzhiner, but you're a Lubavitcher. And as a Lubavitcher, there's another avodah, another type of way of serving, which together with learning the good things from the Ruzhiner and the Boyaner and that Hasidic movement, you stay as a Lubavitcher, and it enhances your Lubavitcher Hasidus, which you've chosen to be a Chassid. I'm not going to take any more time about this. It needs a fabrenga for itself. One day we will do it in Hashem. It is that the schus of the great tzaddik, Rebbe Yisrael Ruzhiner, the Heiliger Ruzhiner, should help us in many ways, especially with the difficulties that the world is experiencing now. And we should have Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, only Simchas, Parnasa Barachava, Shidduchim Toivim, good children, healthy children, marriages, lots of Parnasa, and we should ultimately see all the tzaddikim together in Yerushalayim and HaKodesh through Tchiyas HaMeishim, B'Korav Mamesh. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.